Otherwise we'll just ride around the nursery and count sheep.
Last season on Chosen Ones. After discovering Peter to be merged with the Abergrim, the compound tries to deal with the aftermath of this reveal. Aviath appears to question himself, his biggest accomplishment turning out to be a lie. The group tries to comfort him, and he seems to have gained some of his confidence with their reassurances. Estelle announces that she believes Aelia has left after unmerging with Tinder, and that soon they can stay in their cabins again. Brandy finds a flyer in the library that refers to his patron, and he copies it down for later use. In the dead of night, Shui leaves the library after being called outside by a jabber. It leads him to a well and pushes him in, his screams awakening the party as they rush to his aid. A strange black substance crawls out of the well, and the group battles both it and the jabber. During their fight, Brandy banishes the black moss from the jabber, revealing it to be a pale tiefling that Brandy knows named Free. She promises to try and not hurt anyone if he doesn't kill her, but that she needs the moss to stay alive. After the banishment ends and the moss returns, she's unable to keep control of herself and attacks Brandy, who knocks her unconscious. As they flee, they watch the larger black moss cover her, and they both vanish into the ground. They return to the library to inform Wynne and Libris about the creature before wearily going back to sleep. The next day, Brandy meets with Estelle to try and contact his patron. After showcasing the strange flyer he had copied down earlier, Brandy reads it out loud and is transported to a different plane. It's here that he finally meets his patron, the Magic Man. The entity informs Brandy that he's been given a second chance at life, and that he has been charged with finding something known as the Black Heart, an object the source of all life and where sparks originate from. The entertainer tells him to also obtain Arthur's radio if they want to speak more often. The Magic Man informs Brandy that the two of them have to put on a good show for the audience, and thousands of multicolored eyes appear around them before the Warlock teleports back to the material plane. Estelle confirms to Brandy that the audience was also the eye creature that appeared during Theo's Astrum Golem final, and that Peter also has a pact with the Magic Man. Aviath feels a strangely holy presence in the confession booth, but isn't able to detect what it is. Shui and Essen spar, Shui being announced the victor. Afterwards, the young sword singer is approached by Flynn, who extends the offer for him to visit the Prime Capital and learn more about elven swords. Shui accepts the black sapphire he is offered. Evening falls, and the sparks gather at the stage where Flynn reads off missions the capital has assigned to the compound. They select the Ghost Ship mission, and shortly after Shui receives the message that Dashi has been arrested for murdering Greenflower, he declares his intent to attend the trial as a witness and prove her innocence. Aviath summons his steed, Hestia, and the four of them leave without a mentor despite being warned against it. Libris plans to take the other group to Sol to intervene with a demigod that's appeared there.
Our sparks soon travel into the farmlands where they are attacked by a swarm of snakes. Brandy is poisoned by one of them, black veins appearing on his neck. Theo tries to heal him, and as he does so, time appears to stop. A spider-like figure apparates on the horizon, asking Theo what he desires. He answers for Brandy not to be hurt, and shortly after, time starts back up and Theo forgets this encounter. Brandy is healed, and the group continues, speculating that Theo's spark must have upgraded. Brandy takes the night watch and stumbles upon the remains of a dragon covered in specklings. He casts Speak with Dead, and the dragon informs him that someone only referred to as she tore it from the sky. It claims that the world has been broken, but the spell expires before more information can be gathered. The next day, the group comes across a woman known as Rivera Tanglewood who lives with her mother in a shoe. Her mother has a spark that allows her to grow any inanimate object, whereas Rivera can shift objects in space. Aviath turns down her offer to help them get to Greenflower, and they continue forward. Later, when Brandy and Theo are on watch, the two notice Aviath's eyes glowing oddly in his sleep. They discover purple veins going up his neck, and recall that the Abergrim had touched him back at the compound. Meanwhile, Shui visits Winona again in the moon. She asks him if he could have anything in the world, what would it be, and he answers that he wants Dashi to be safe. As the sun rises, Winona takes off the rabbit mask she wears to uncover a face similar to Libris, and reveals her and Shui to be family before he wakes up. After briefly stopping in Moonfoam, Shui and Aviath take the last night watch. Coming across a woman with a wide-brimmed hat gripping the beak of a jabber, Aviath quickly directs Hestia forward after the elf recognizes the sleeping Brandy as an Abergrim tiefling. They proceed, looking over their shoulder to see the woman turn the jabber to dust before vanishing into the forest. Our heroes finally make it to the city of Greenflower, briefly separating to go shopping before meeting back up at a potion shop, catching a glimpse of a mysterious Asmar woman dressed in white. She appears to be cuffed with the same glowing handcuffs that the Darkborn Queen had, also displaying the same eye tattoo on her chest. Her guards and several townsfolk wear the same mask that Flynn donned. The group next visits the Hall of Fame, which showcases a variety of important people over the centuries. Carmentis, Lalani, King Larkspur, Libris, and Nine stand out as notable figures. Going further into the museum, the tour guide takes them to the Hall of Infamy, showing them statues of Ambrose, the Darkborn Queen, a blue-cloaked figure in a plague mask, and the Plaguebringer, who bears a striking resemblance to Brandy. The tour comes to an end and they return to their hotel rooms, Brandy confirming in private to Theo that the statue was him, and that he had been killed and brought back to life. As they share an intimate moment, Brandy hears the voice of his patron say that they've made it to Act 2. The party decides to go to the jail to talk to Dashi before the trial in a few days. They learn she's been accused of murdering Fisk Shellwood, whose parents had been plotting to kill the king. During their conversation with her, Brandy catches her lying several times, but doesn't call her out with Shui being nearby. They leave, and Brandy takes the group with him to summon Nather and journey to the keep.
Once in the keep, Shui speaks to Dara and confirms Mizuni's claims that Winona is only a body in the moon, and that our memories are elsewhere. Brandy asks the goddess about the Fae, the fallen one Ambrose worshipped, Lemony of the Lost, and she reveals that they were last seen in Wick, the old capital city that collapsed shortly after Vermona appeared. They go to leave the keep, but stop when they hear crying coming from the Forgotten Marsh. Shui rushes in to discover it to be Mizuni, who tells them all she wants is to have her child back. Exiting the marsh, the group stumbles into the Magic Man, who offers more insight on Lemony and informs them that they are related to the Apogram. Before our Sparks can finally leave the keep, however, they are stopped by the Black Goat, who taunts Brandy with a sword. The Tiefling refuses, and the goat runs off as Nather appears to take them out of the keep. Our heroes next decide to set sail towards the ghost ship. After fending off sirens from the sea, they continue towards the glowing ship. A skeleton crew opens fire on the Sparks as they approach, Shui and Aviath making their way onto the enemy boat as Brandy and Theo fight from afar. Before they deal the finishing blow to the last skeleton, it rings a bell to summon the captain of the ship. 4. One of the lost members of the Nine. They prepare to fight alongside her as an enormous jabber bursts from the water, 4 calling it by the name of the long-dead Chosen One, Lalani. The Sparks take battle positions, Aviath transforming and showcasing his abilities as a Scourge Azamar to defend the party. During the battle, Aviath and Shui are knocked unconscious several times, the jabber continuously trying to grab Shui and drag him into the ocean. Aviath manages to deliver the final blow to the creature, but their victory is short-lived when 4 informs them that Lalani will reform. She assures them that if any of them had died with her on the boat, she would have been able to resurrect them with the corpse blade she possesses. Before they leave, they are introduced to Fisk, the ghost child who Dashi was accused of killing. With his testimony, they decide to try and take him to the trial to clear Dashi's name. After returning to the inn to rest, Aviath has a strange dream where he encounters the spider-like creature that Theo met, this time appearing in a blank void with flickering televisions. The creature asks him what he desires, and the Azamar answers that he wants to be the Chosen One. Before Aviath awakens, the figure appears to acknowledge the presence of someone else, but he is unable to see what it is talking to. The next day, Aviath discovers his spark has upgraded and he is now able to fly. Brandy tried to get his sword fixed, but is told he'd have to go to the Prime Capital. On his way back to his room, he runs into Flynn Larkspur, who is exchanging black sapphires for goods in the city. In the evening, the group goes to collect Fisk from the docks. The ghost child is unresponsive at first, but eventually agrees to testify at the trial after Shui shows him around his old town. The day of the trial finally arrives, beginning with the judge using her spark to cast the Zone of Truth. Shui, Fisk, and Dashi all resist the spell, incurring penalties from the court. After Marsh and Dashi are brought up to testify, it finally is Shui's turn. As the judge and priestess question him, a red butterfly flies out of his mouth, and he starts to speak in a voice not his own, admitting to the murder of Fisk Shellwood. The priestess steps forward, announcing that Shui is to be executed for heresy against the Twinkle of Twilight.
Shui recalls a forgotten memory from his past, realizing he was with Fisk the night that he vanished on the docks. In the courthouse, Dashi transforms into a white butterfly and disappears as the priestess and the judge attack Shui. The judge pulls out a black sapphire and eats it, turning into a jabber. Those affected by her screams see multicolored eyes and blue butterflies swarming the room. Fisk vanishes during the fight, and Shui drags Theo outside, shortly followed by Marsh. Aviath briefly sees a figure in the corner of the room that appears to be the same blue figure from the Hall of Infamy, but they disappear a moment later. The priestess casts a spell on Theo, causing him to fall unconscious from his injuries. Shui unsheathes the beast blade for the first time and uses it to attack her. After Brandy also deals a critical hit, the priestess turns invisible to try and escape. Brandy stabilizes Theo before pursuing the priestess, using a spark after she tries to attack him. She's knocked out, and her spell is undone, revealing her location. Brandy resists the urge to kill her, and orders Marsh to tie her up before going back inside and assisting Aviath. He deals a final blow to the jabber, who briefly transforms back before crumbling to dust. After the battle, Shui heals the priestess to wake her up, and Brandy interrogates her. She reveals that Shui's parents conspired to kill a newborn god, who had formed when two other gods broke a pact with the pantheon that banned the creation of new gods. The priestess then whispers the name of the one she calls the true god, Brandy immediately taking significant damage upon hearing it as she falls to the ground dead. The name was one the whole party had heard before, Abaddon. Brandy decides to keep the name a secret for now, but wonders what connection it has to Aviath. After Shui says his goodbyes to Marsh, they head out of Greenflower. As the party makes their way back to the edge of the city, they notice a battle taking place over it between Nather and Verada. The group quickly rushes in to try and save as many people as they can, before a blinding white light erupts from the sky, leaving a crater where the once proud city stood. Brandy goes inside the crater after noticing specklings gathering at the bottom, and sees that they appear to be eating black sapphires that survived the blast. After doing what they can to help, they leave for Moonfoam. Our heroes continue traveling into the evening, the purple veins on Aviath's neck appearing to have turned silver as a growth forms in the center of his forehead. Brandy speculates he might be turning into some kind of tiefling. With little else they can do, Brandy casts Dream on Libris in an attempt to get help. Instead, he encounters Winona, a white butterfly flying around her that he quickly realizes is Dashi. He leaves the dream to contact Estel, where he overhears a conversation taking place between her and Carmentis, who is holding the mask of Slain. He learns that Slain and Carmentis are one and the same, and also Estel's uncle and patron. Brandy tells Estel what has happened, and she tells him to go to the old compound so that Arthur can teleport them to the new one. She warns that the universe as a whole could be in danger. Meanwhile, Shui has a strange dream of his own, meeting the creature that has called himself Abaddon. It asks Shui what he desires, and the bard answers to take away the bad things. Before he wakes up, the figure orders him to remember their conversation and tell everyone that Abaddon is coming.
Memories suddenly come rushing back to everyone as they recall how they first learned of their sparks. Shui was attacked by the siren jabber, Theo was bitten by a poisonous snake, and Aviath was visited by King Larkspur, who tried to take him as a baby. A young Brandy was visited by Slain, only for their conversation to be interrupted by Abaddon. He gave the tiefling his spark instead, telling him a tale with a sinister undertone. Our sparks awaken, these memories still being at the forefront of their minds. Brandy decides to try and contact Arthur to make sure they have a way to get to the new compound. When entering the High Elf's dream, he sees him pleading with the unmoving figure of a man named Zyri. After Brandy announces himself, Arthur tells him that Zyri is the one who taught him how to time travel. After Brandy informs him that Slain was replaced, Arthur gets increasingly more panicked, eventually threatening to leave the old compound without them if they don't arrive soon. Brandy manages to convince him to stay, and Arthur agrees to explain what's going on. The group continues forward, despite the anxiety their flashbacks have brought them. During their travels, Brandy casts Dream one more time to contact the Abigrim, coming face to face with the Archfiend. Their conversations lead to many revelations, including that Aviath is an Asmer of Lemony, and is turning into a tiefling because of the Abigrim's curse. The Archfiend's feud with Lemony stretches back to another universe, where the Fae tried to leave them behind when escaping from a collapsing world. Brandy leaves, hoping that the Abigrim can still become a better person despite the atrocities that he caused. As our sparks push forward, they collide with a body that suddenly appears in the road. It's none other than Zyri, Arthur's time-traveling friend, who seems in a hurry to return to the compound after learning of Abaddon's presence. They quickly make their way to the compound and immediately notice something to be wrong, the place being covered in specklings. They split up, Shui and Aviath heading towards the stage, while the other three go to the library. They find Arthur in Estel's study, clutching a book and seeming unaware of the specklings that have invaded the compound. Zairi orders the wizard to stay in the library before rushing out with Theo and Brandy. Back at the stage, Aviath and Shui also encounter Arthur, looking different than he normally does. After they call him out on this, Zairi arrives at the stage, and the other Arthur snaps his fingers to reveal the half-elf to be covered in bran similar to Brandy. They both refer to each other as the wrong one, before Brandy and Theo also manage to get to the stage, followed by the original Arthur. Upon seeing himself on the stage, Arthur takes the book he obtained from the library and starts to tear it apart, the world ripping to pieces as he does so. Brandy and Arthur find themselves alone together in a black void, Brandy threatening him to bring Theo and the others back before he calms down enough to allow the High Elf to open a portal. They both step inside, an unknown world awaiting them. Meanwhile, Shui and Aviath are suddenly transported to the mountains, finding themselves to be working with Flynn Larkspur to take down two intimidating figures, the Plaguebringer and Theo Redstone, the Fallen One.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell. I wanna